We are here to kickstart our journey with the first session of the day, Growth Mindset for Entrepreneurs. The concept of a growth mindset is a simple yet transformative idea that has become an integral part of entrepreneurial success. It challenges us to believe that our abilities and intelligence can be developed, that effort will lead to mastery, and that obstacles are opportunities for learning. We are extremely fortunate today to have amongst us some of the leading thinkers and doers of the entrepreneurial world who have truly embodied a growth mindset in their journey. I'm honored to introduce our esteemed speaker for this session, an expert who embodies the very spirit of the growth mindset. He has excelled in his field, hurdled challenges, and transformed obstacles into opportunities. Now, let me introduce our first speaker, Mr. Srikanth Velamkanni, the co-founder, Group Chief Executive and Executive Vice Chairman of Fractal AI, a global leader in artificial intelligence and analytics that powers decision-making in Fortune 500 companies. He started Fractal AI with a vision to power every human decision in the enterprise, and he hasn't looked back since. Under his leadership, Fractal AI has grown into a multi-million-dollar company, carving a niche for itself in the highly competitive AI and analytics space. In addition to his corporate success, Mr. Velamkanni is a thought leader in analytics and artificial intelligence. His insights and predictions are sought after by leading publications and businesses worldwide. With a keen focus on value creation through data analytics and AI, he has made a significant contribution to the digital transformation journeys of some of the world's leading companies. Not just that, his remarkable journey is a testament to the power of perseverance, innovation, and a relentless pursuit of growth. Today, he joins us to share his insights on cultivating a growth mindset for entrepreneurs. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Srikanth Velamkanni. And now, allow me to introduce our esteemed moderator for this session, Mr. Harish Mehta. He is a name that resonates deeply within the Indian IT industry, being the co-founder and non-executive director of Onward Technologies, a pioneer in the field of IT consulting and services. In addition to being instrumental in the growth and success of Onward Technologies, Mr. Mehta is widely recognized as one of the founding members of NASSCOM, the industry association for the IT and BPO sector in India. His leadership has helped shape the IT landscape of India, placing it firmly on the global map. A visionary, a mentor, and a leader, Mr. Mehta's contribution to the industry is truly invaluable. His insights and expertise promise to add immense value to our discussion on the growth mindset for entrepreneurs. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Harish Mehta. Together, they will take us through the tenets of a growth mindset and how entrepreneurs can cultivate it to create thriving enterprises, drive innovation, and remain adaptable in an ever-changing world. So without further ado, let's get the ball rolling and dive deep into the world of entrepreneurship with a growth mindset lens. Welcome once again to TiEcon Kolkata 2023, the biggest growth conclave of Eastern India. Let's embark on this journey of learning and growth together. Before we start the session, I'd like to inform you all that they both will be available for the unconference. Post this session, we have Mr. Srikanth Velamkanni at the Sapphire Banquet at the first floor, and we have Mr. Harish Mehta at the boardroom, also at the first floor next to the Sapphire Banquet. Thank you.
Good morning, Kolkata. It's a pleasure to be here. Getting into the subject, friends, as we all know, that from Indian perspective, technology is like a bottle lightning. We have so many now new technologies from AI, quantum, CRISPR, genomics, and one by one coming in. And the permutation, combination of these technologies has the potential to change India faster than we all can probably imagine. So among these technologies, generative AI is one of the key technologies which over the last 1 year we have seen has taken over the world literally. And we all know that this technology is going to envelop every industry and change. Now, talking about generative AI, last week I saw this movie, Ex Machina. How many of you have seen that movie, Ex Machina? Okay, it's a 2015 movie, right? and talks about, the actual phrase is Deus ex machina. It means God from the machine. And the movie talks about how AI will, I would say, it's a science fiction psychological thriller, and it talks about how artificial intelligence will take over, or life would be injected in AI. And if you read the dialogues of that movie, if you read I thoroughly enjoyable in terms of what they predicted is coming true today. And the person who is a visionary, the director, the writer of that movie, reminded me of Srikanth. So we have a person with us who is deep into the generative AI, and as we all know that generative AI is going to literally take over in some ways, while other technologies and will play its role, which would be still made by people and not by the machines. But still, I thought that before we talk about the growth mindset, let us set the sort of a context of AI. So I'll now request Srikanth to take over and talk about AI, and then we will get into the question answer for the growth mindset.
Thank you, Harish bhai. I'm a big fan of Ex Machina, so if you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend it. Unless you've been, oh, maybe I'll just stand. Unless you've been living under a rock for the last many months, you would have seen the explosive growth of AI. Take a look at this picture. If you ask the question, what is unusual about this image? Right? It was an impossible question to answer 10 years ago. 10 years ago, if you basically wanted to know what is there in the picture, AI would be able to say that there is probably a car, maybe a human being, but beyond that, nothing. 5 years ago, it would say something like, it could describe the scene. A man is ironing his shirt at the back of a moving car. That would be very good progress even for 2018, 2017, 2019 maybe. But in 2023, it can actually tell you what is so exceptional or unusual. That it is not usual, it's funny, or unusual about this image. It can actually tell you something like, this is kind of weird, it's not normal. The idea of machines being able to reason with data is a very new phenomenon. Machines have been very good at various things, but reasoning with data, to be able to understand why is a joke funny, that requires something that is very close to common sense. And common sense, while it seems to be common, it's very difficult for machines to get that. So machines are getting better and better at reasoning with data. So I want to explain to you what this means, and before that I want to give you a little backstory of what is going on behind the scenes to create this compelling sort of AI, and therefore what does it mean for us in the world. I'm going to take roughly 10 minutes or less so that we can focus the rest of the session on growth mindset related discussions. Okay, you know that GPT-3 is ChatGPT is the fastest service to reach 100 million users in just 2 months. 100 million users in 2 months is the fastest ever in the history of business, right? You're already aware of something like this, but what is behind the scenes? So this is a new kind of AI, which is called the generative AI. And before that, we had a world which is called the discriminative AI. Discriminative AI is about predicting the probability of specific events. Does this image have a tumor? Does this person have a tumor? Can you recognize speech? Can you play a game of chess? These are the kinds of things which were there in the previous world of discriminative AI, right? Which was about predicting the probability of specific events. But what has changed in the last 6 months to a year is this explosive growth of generative AI. Generative AI has been there for a few years, but it has grown tremendously. And the idea here is to create novel, new content. Content like, writing code for you, right? There's an example of a generative AI image winning the art prize last year in Colorado State Art Fair. That picture that you see on the top. So amazing examples of taking something and creating something completely new, which is completely appending creative arts. Now, what is behind the scenes? To understand this, one equation is something that you need to understand, which is error is a function of data, compute, and techniques. Error is actually very important. When you do any work in the world of AI, how accurate it is determines the adoption or the success of the product. So it is a function of data, compute, and techniques. Let's see what are those in the case of OpenAI, in the case of GPT-3 and 4. Now GPT-2, when GPT-2 was built, it was built only on 40 gigs of data, which is roughly the size, little bit, double the size of Wikipedia. In case of GPT-3, it was trained on 30 times the size of Wikipedia. So massive amounts of data. Just imagine to read 30 times the size of Wikipedia. None of us can read in our lifetimes that much information. All that information has already been read by GPT-3. And GPT-4, which seems to be a much better version on GPT-3, just yesterday, this news came out that they have been trained on almost 1200 times the size of Wikipedia. So 40 times the size of GPT-3 itself. Just incredible amount of data has gone in. So really they maxed out on the quality and the quantity of data in building GPT-3 and 4. Now let's look at the second dimension. What is the compute or computational horsepower that they brought to make this work? The computational horsepower is mind-numbing. They use the NVIDIA Azure supercomputer. It's one of the largest supercomputers ever built to actually run these algorithms, to train these machines. They trained it over a period of 30 full days on 225 billion words over a 30-day period. So you switch it on, you train it non-stop for 30 full days on 225 billion words. And what it is doing is to predict the next word. I'm going to come to that in a little bit. But massive amounts of compute, 285,000 CPUs and 10,000 A100 GPUs, which are one of the latest technologies from NVIDIA is A100 and now H100. And these they use 10,000 GPUs, 285,000 CPUs to train this network. So they put in incredible amounts of computational horsepower across a long period of time to train these models. And GPT-4, I'm told, is actually may have been built on even much larger, so 10 trillion words. So incredible amount of training. So they again maxed out on the computation part of it. Now let's get to the technique. What techniques did they use? And for that, I need to give you a little bit of a history lesson. So AI has been about, imitating human beings or exceeding human performance in a wide range of cognitive tasks. But for the first 50 years, it was about instructing machines what to do. A lot like a computing paradigm, where you write rules and if-then-else statements, and you tell machines what to do. Even when Kasparov was defeated by Deep Blue in 1997, it was about machines being taught exactly what are the opening moves, mid-games, and end-games in chess, and running those computations much more efficiently. It was not really intelligent in the way that we think now, right? So in the last 15 years, what has happened is the rise of these machine learning techniques, which are actually within that deep learning techniques. They are kind of three kinds of things. Supervised, where you give examples. You give cats, not cats, dogs, not dogs, and then it learns over a time what is a cat, right? That is the supervised learning. Unsupervised learning is about actually figuring it out itself by data, right? You give examples, you give data, and it figures out, okay, these people seem to be similar, or this seems to be an unusual transaction. This is called unsupervised learning. There is no labels, there are no examples. It learns just from data directly. Okay? And then reinforcement learning, where it has an objective function. I want to maximize something, and it keeps making some actions, getting feedback from the environment, and learning from it. These are the three kinds of techniques that have been popular in the world of AI. What OpenAI did was to build a new technique which is called self-supervised learning, where it learns, basically it has sort of some features of supervised and unsupervised learning, in the sense that you give it a string of text, and then it takes the first few words and then predicts the next word. For example, if I say, my favorite city in India is, and you all know it is Kolkata, right? So it predicts it's Kolkata, and if it's Kolkata or not, it learns from it, and then it predicts the next word after that in that sentence. And it keeps learning like that over a period of time. Right? And that is the technique of self-supervised learning. The data and the labels are in the data itself, and that is how it learned. And by doing this next word prediction, the next token prediction, it has built an incredible amount of intelligence. So this is the new technique. This technique was not built by OpenAI. Actually, it was built by Google. They released it in 2017 in a paper called Attention is All You Need. And that paper is what these guys used, OpenAI used. But then they built it on enormous amounts of data. So you see, they built a very large model. These are called large language models because they have billions of parameters, billions of knobs that you can tweak to get the right answer. Think of if you're an airline pilot and you have a cockpit which has, let's say, 175 billion knobs which we can tweak to get the optimal flight path. Think of that. They have 175 billion knobs that they can tweak to get the right answer. And in case of GPT-4, again, this data came out only yesterday, they have 1.8 trillion parameters. Massive amounts of very large model with lots of different features to tweak, because of which this has generated, so they maxed out on the technique as well. So data, compute and techniques, we talked about 3 things. In each of these 3 areas, they put in the maximum possible, and the net result of this is a very accurate, highly predictive model called ChatGPT or GPT-4, and it's changing the world. Now, why should it change? And there are multiple others, by the way. There are a few others that they've done, again, because we don't have that much time, I'm not going to go through it, but it's very exciting what they're doing in this space as well. Apart from, they made some improvements in the technique too. But data, compute and techniques, they brought in together to create this incredibly powerful ChatGPT and others that you are now experiencing. Why the heck is this important? Why is it going to change the world? Okay, it's a chatbot, it's going to answer my questions, so what's the big deal? It is a big deal, and I'm going to explain why. Because it will generate tremendous amounts of productivity improvements. Already, companies are making big changes inside their organizations to see where can I augment human beings with AI, and therefore I need fewer people to do things. So productivity is going to change dramatically across a whole range of industries. Every product, process, it will change. Okay. Secondly, just to give you an example of how productivity changes, take the writing of code. Now, India has 5.5 million IT programmers who write code for a living. Just imagine if their code could be done double the speed or 3 times the speed. We won't need 5.5 million people. Only 2 million people can do it. Now, leaving 4 other million people to go do other things or write even more code. And the world will get much more technology, and world can change for the better because tech will become cheaper. We can get more throughput. Now if you asked a question, what is the hottest programming language in 2021, it would have been JavaScript or Python. But if in 2023, the hottest programming language is English, because you can think in English and get code. You can basically write code just by writing English, right? It will not only write code, it will fix code, it will debug, it will write your tests, it will do everything with code. And that is the power. Just in one example, I can show you how much productivity improvement there can be. Now, it's also important because it will add a foundational layer of intelligence in every problem that we are solving. And what does that mean? I'll give you one little example for this. This is actually an example that came out a few weeks after GPT-4 was launched in March 10, 2023. So this guy says GPT-4 saved his dog's life. So what happened with this person is his dog had a tick-borne disease, and he had gone to a veterinarian to get some advice. They ran a battery of tests. They had some hypothesis as to what is going on, some diagnosis, and then they gave some medicines. That treatment didn't work. This dog was about to die. And then he had no options but to say, okay, why don't I upload all the blood test results and all the things that happened with the doctor into GPT-4? And he did that. Here's what he gave the information to the program, to GPT-4. And then it basically said that there could be some issues like this, increase in WBCs. So he said, what are some of the underlying causes? And it gave 2 answers. And the first of these answers, which is highlighted here, is something that he went back to the vet with. And the vet said, oh, this, maybe I didn't think of this, and why don't I give you this kind of medicine? And the dog was actually much better after this. Its life was saved. So I am going to tell you that by 2020 something, it will be irresponsible for a doctor to not use AI. It will be irresponsible for any expert to not use AI in making decisions. And AI will deliver actionable insights. It will deliver creative ideas and first drafts. Anything that you want to do, a first draft. If you're a lawyer and you want to write a leave and license agreement, the first draft will come from AI. Why should you write it? Right? If you are anybody, you will first get a first draft from AI. AI will summarize vast amounts of data. If you have a 500-page document, you can just ask questions. Why do you have to read 500 pages? We really do not have the information processing capacity of 500 pages, but AI has. AI will provide hypotheses and predictions like it did in the case of this disease. And eventually, companies that use AI will outperform companies that don't. And it's not that AI will replace humans, it's that humans who use AI will replace humans who don't. Thank you.
Thank you, Srikanth. Excellent overview of where the technology is. Now, I see the entrepreneurs from the Kolkata here. I see the entire ecosystem of startup players are also here. What would be your message to them in terms of opportunities, challenges, as far as not only AI, but in general, as the startup world is concerned?
I think firstly that every company now is a tech company. Either you are directly using tech, or tech is an incredibly strong enabler for your success. I think this was something that I wouldn't have said even a couple of years ago, but it does seem like every company now is a tech company because you can use AI to drive productivity. So I would say that every company should reimagine itself as, what if I were to be AI first? What if I were to bring in that intelligence into everything I do? How can I dramatically improve every part of my business, whether it is customer experience, whether it is about productivity increase, whether it's about building new products faster, whether it's about enabling decision making, or about reinventing my business. Every dimension of my business can be significantly accelerated if I were to think as a tech company rather than as a real world company. So yes, you are a real world company, but think yourself as a tech company first and then solve the real world problems that are there. Yes, tech can really, really help, and it has always been the case, but it has dramatically accelerated in the last couple of years.
So in order to succeed in this environment, which you just talked about, what kind of mindset people should have? Let's say the theme of the session is also growth mindset. You can give us examples either from your personal journey or from the Fractal journey.
So,
and take as much time as you want and tell us the stories there.
Absolutely. So, when I started Fractal back in 2000, AI was certainly it was very, very new to the world, because most of the massive progress in AI started happening after 2010. So in 2010, what I saw was a whole host of companies showing some impressive results using deep learning. And you could see that some of the AI natives like Google and Microsoft and Amazon, they started building AI research teams, especially in deep learning areas. But I started Fractal in 2000, which was 10 years before that. So we had to really come the very hard way of, we started this business in India, serving Indian clients, which meant that we had to, and they say what they say about selling shoes in Africa, right? You can think of it as an opportunity. Nobody wears shoes, so therefore the whole market is open for you, and nobody wears shoes. There's no demand for it. So we were in that kind of a world back in 2000 with AI, and it was very difficult to explain ourselves as to what work we do. So it was about proving the very hard way that what we do can make money. So we actually the first time we went to ICICI, this is much before the world of fintech. Right? We actually told them that we can automate your lending product, and ICICI was interested in automating a personal loan where you could walk into a store, let's say a TV store, and buy a TV and get that TV and get the loan in 30 minutes or less. So what we did was that we can build a risk model which can automate the decision making for you, and that was the first thing we did back in 2000. They built this very successful product. So what we had to show right from the beginning was that it's not just an exciting technology, it can immediately impact your business. You can make money, you can reduce your credit losses, you can increase your sales conversion, you can improve your customer experience. We can do all that with AI. So that has been the journey. But to come to the AI progress, 2010 was the first time AI started showing very real world results with a lot of interest in research came in. By 2015, we saw that the entire Fortune 100 space had CEOs talking to their boards and making presentations on why AI is important. And by 2020, post-COVID and digital acceleration, things started to take off in an even more significant way. So we had to wait for a very long time for our business to become very exciting and interesting, and to us to raise money. So we had in the beginning, we had a very hard time in raising capital in India, because if you're a very new product or a service, it's hard to convince, and this was the early days of venture capital in India. So This was a very hard problem for us to solve. I think the key thing is that we persisted. We persisted despite the, the initial feedback that, see, the investor feedback was very negative, but the client feedback was always very positive. So I always say that think of the first moment of truth. The first moment of truth is your customer, when she or he looks at a product, they are interested in, do they buy or not. This is actually a term coined by P&G back in the day called the first moment of truth, which is, when somebody walks into the retail store, when they look at all the shampoos, do they really want to buy that Head and Shoulders shampoo or not? That's the first moment of truth. That is very important because that shows whether your product is really valuable, are you selling it well. That even more important is the second moment of truth, which is once they start using it, they take the shampoo bottle home and they start using it, do they really enjoy it? Do they like it? Do they come back? Do they advocate it to other people? That's the second moment of truth, even more important than the first moment of truth. So we saw throughout our journey that our second moment of truth was very good. That whenever we were solving problems for clients, they were giving us phenomenal feedback. It was making a ton of money for them. Yes, we were not exciting business for venture funding at that time, but we knew that it was only a matter of time for us to succeed. So one of the things at least for me, the lesson was to hang in there and look at those more important sources of feedback, which is coming from clients and customers rather than coming from investors. Typically, investors will chase something else, and they go in peaks and troughs like that. But client feedback is always very, very real, and that is something that we used in order to get better as a company. The other thing I'll say in terms of growth mindset is taking feedback. So I have seen that at every stage of my journey as Fractal, I've seen that whenever I personally grew, I was able to grow Fractal even more. So every time I took feedback very sincerely. I'll give you an example of, now that we're talking of fundraising, I'll give you a fundraising example. This is in 2009 or 10, where a friend of mine, he was actually a few years senior to me from college. He was working for a very successful American venture capital firm. And Fractal was a really small company back then. It was about $5 million in revenue. And so he came to our offices and he spent the whole day. He brought in his American colleagues and they spent the whole day in our office. And at the end of the day, he took me aside and my entire executive team in the meeting as well. He told me, Srikanth, we really like this business, but we can't fund it. I said, sure, of course. I mean, we were used to getting rejected by everybody. So it was okay. So I said, yeah, I guess you think the analytics space is too nascent, etc. He said, no, I don't have any problem with the space. I like the company. I like the space. I don't like you. I was sort of like, this really stunning feedback, right? So I got this feedback. And then he said, look, this is a very important space and you are the leader of this business. And we don't believe that you can scale this business. And therefore, we are not going to fund you. So when I got this feedback, I, like everybody else, and maybe even more so, I am really bad at receiving feedback. I'm sure all of you may have, what I'm talking about. It's very hard to get feedback, especially brutally, critically negative feedback is very hard to receive. So I got this feedback. It stung like crazy for the first day. Right? So I took this feedback. I went back home and I was, reflecting on this for a whole day. Next day, I got to office and I had this conversation with the executive team. I wanted to share with them that, look, the problem is not with the company. The problem is with me, at least as per this feedback. It was very important for me to share this information with my team because I wanted to make sure that they still believe in the business because we were getting these rejections left, right, and center. So I wanted to say that, look, company is fine. I am the problem. I shared that, and then I decided that, look, I'm going to work very hard to get better. I have to figure out how do we grow this business to the next level? How do I grow as a leader to take this business to the next level? And I think I managed to do that, through various things. But first, listening to this feedback, absorbing this feedback, and then reflecting on it, and then deciding to get better, and even sharing with my team members, that led the transformation in myself, which I think helped us in raising money. Eventually, we raised money in 2013. We raised 25 million. And then we have raised almost 700 million from various private equity firms since 2013. So the same people who said that Srikanth is, we can't fund you, we don't trust you. In 2013, somebody said Srikanth looks like a public company CEO. I think he's going to make a great public company CEO. I was like really stunned with this new feedback, because I said in 3 years, I think I may have made a transformation in myself, because from those days I had grown. But it all started because I absorbed this very negative feedback and decided to work on it.
Excellent. Excellent. So now this growth mindset, going forward for Fractal, what does it mean?
So it means that I think for starters, this is something that we discuss with our clients as well. We have a concept called day one mindset. What is a day one mindset? Right? It's very easy to take what you have for granted. Right? We have 150 of the Fortune 500 companies. We have almost 5,000 people. 2,000 crores in revenue. And we can say that next year, 2,000 crores is given, we need to work on the next 1,000 crores of revenue, right? And after that, the next 2,000 crores of revenue. You can almost assume that whatever you have done so far is a given. We can only go bigger and better than that. But what we have seen is that doesn't work. You have to have a day one mindset, which means that nothing that you have now, you can take as a given for tomorrow. Every new breath is a new day, right? Every new day is a brand new day. And you have to have the right to win your trust of your clients and your people and your investors and everything else. You cannot take that for granted. So see the world of AI. Everything has changed in the last 6 months. Whatever we thought we knew, it has got appended with generative AI. So unless we have this thirst for learning and growth, unless we feel that we are not yet done making, and we have to earn the right to be a successful company every single day. It seems hard, it seems brutal, but that is the reality, right? The reality is that the market doesn't care about your past laurels. Market only cares about whether you're relevant today and tomorrow. And that is what it means for Fractal and for other companies, that whatever you have done, your successes are good, but they are no guarantee of your future success. And you have to have that day one mindset, which assumes that nothing is given, everything has to be earned every single day.
Now, just a different side question. Kolkata is a center of culture, music, Hollywood, movie, and how would AI impact this particular business segment?
Yeah. So first of all, I must tell you that I grew up in Assam, and every year we used to make 1 or 2 trips to rest of the world, which is rest of India, and we used to travel through Kolkata. So Kolkata was my gateway to civilization throughout my upbringing, and it's been so I've really grown up appreciating Kolkata in many ways throughout my life. So Kolkata actually has a tremendous amount of equity as the intellectual capital of India. Right? It is really the place where significant intellectual developments happened back, even if you go back hundreds of years. There's a reason why the British were stationed here, and why I think many of the Nobel Prize winners came from this part of the world. So I think the literary tradition of India, the intellectual tradition of India, just the thought leadership in India has been something that Kolkata has managed. And what is happening, I've seen in the world, and if you think of all the creative arts, we all thought that AI will first do the basic grunt work, and then eventually it will do the creative work. Right? That was the thinking, that it will do the manual work, physical manual work, and then it will do some of the information processing type of work, and eventually it will do the creative work. That was the mindset, or that was the thinking. In reality, it's going the opposite way. It's appending the creative work already. If you've used Adobe Generative Fill, I don't know if somebody has used Adobe Generative Fill, where it does is you take a picture and say, Phil, if this picture were much bigger, show me the whole background. If I just showed you this little picture of this room and say fill in the rest of the room, it fills it in. It's a beautiful thing, right? So ChatGPT can write poems right now. Many people are reciting poems in many conferences. It's become quite boring now to listen to all those ChatGPT poems being recited in conferences, which I've listened to a few times. But ChatGPT and AI has become very good in terms of creative arts. So in some ways, it's first appending creative work, then it's appending information processing kind of work. So cognitive, repetitive, information processing, data processing work, and eventually, many, many years later, it will actually replace a very manual work. So the most safe jobs are the ones that are more physical in nature. The more physical somebody's job is, more safe it is, because AI is not going to get there soon enough. So in that way, if you take a Kolkata view, I think AI is an asset. Any creative person or any intellectual person needs to use AI in order to do their work even better. So I think, if at all, this part of India has to embrace AI even more so than and the rest of the country.
Now, I use ChatGPT every day, by the way, even though not an artist.
Yes, of course. It's definitely helping us. If, for example, if you want to do wish somebody a happy birthday, and you want to come up with a creative way of wishing a happy birthday, or it's just becoming such a useful assistant.
Yeah.
So I expect that in the next few years, right, let's say 3 to 4 years from now, all of us will have an assistant that is working for us, only for us. Right now, ChatGPT works for OpenAI. It's helping you, but it has its own business model. But I expect that in the foreseeable future, there will be an AI that is working exclusively for us, whose only objective is to maximize our objective function. Right now, ChatGPT is maximizing OpenAI's objective function, or Google search is optimizing Google's business, right? It's trying to increase their revenue. Yes, part of increasing the revenue is to build a good product that I want to use. So there is some alignment, but 100% alignment is not there with my objectives. So what if I can build an AI that is 100% aligned to my interests and is actually helping me in every step of the way? On your you already carry your smartphone, but if on a smartphone there's an AI that's literally helping you in becoming a better human, it will help us be a better version of ourselves. And that is the power of what AI can do.
So in that context, we all, in this educational world, we would be reading, writing, arithmetic, other very basic skills. Do you see that every Indian should become AI savvy?
Yes. I think, a large majority of India will be people who should use AI like they use any tool. Right? I mean, all of us use basic internet browsing, for example. To that extent, every person in India should be AI literate in the way they're able to use AI to do their day-to-day work. I think, and some of this might mean that they don't have to understand AI, that AI is behind it. They just need to know how to use it. I was with Abhishek Singh of Ministry of Information Technology a couple of days back, and he was sharing that his vision. I asked him, what is a most best use case for AI you can think of as Government of India? And he said that a villager in, let's say, remote part of India should be able to make a phone call using his or her feature phone, not even a smartphone, and should be able to get predictions, understand what is the weather like tomorrow, or what is my, how do I get the best price for my crops, or whatever she or he is doing, get that information. And AI is doing all that work in the background. I'm just a user of AI. I don't have to know what is behind AI. That, I think, is only limited for a very few people. So think of a billion people being able to use the fruits of AI in how they make progress in their day-to-day work. And then I would think that a few million people, maybe 10 to 20 million people, maybe 50 million people, have to be people who are power users of AI. So they are not necessarily the OpenAI type of people who are writing the code, but they're able to stitch it for much more powerful applications. They're like, think of our software programmers right now, but they are like using what is there and stitching to create new stuff. So they're power users. So all of us in this room should be in that group of people who are using AI in a much more powerful way, not just as a ChatGPT way, but being able to automate their daily tasks, or use AI in a much more integrated to their applications. So that's the next layer. And then there is a top layer of people who are actually advancing AI. They will be a handful, maybe a few thousand people, maybe 100,000 people who are saying, I'm going to write the code to advance AI to the next level. So there will be a tiering of people, I feel, in terms of how to use AI.
Thanks. Now, by the way, Srikanth is the one, when the ChatGPT came out and there were lots of fears in the marketplace about job losses, that most of the human jobs will be replaced by the AI. He's the one who coined the phrase that human with AI will replace human who doesn't know AI. It's not that the jobs will be replaced by AI. And that has become sort of a now, I would say, main guideline for a large number of policymakers saying how to look at AI from a different perspective and not look at it as an enemy or a monster the way many have projected. I think, Srikanth, we have only 5 minutes left now. So can you tell maybe 3 messages for the growth mindset for the entrepreneurs here?
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, whatever comes to you.
Yeah. I think the first thing I'll say is, I think we've spoken about this a little bit today. I think feedback is very powerful. So unless you seek feedback, it is very difficult to receive feedback, like I said, but it's even more difficult to provide feedback. Why should I come and give you feedback? Because, unless I suddenly, you don't like me anymore, or, our relationship will get tested. So most people will never provide you objective feedback unless you specifically allow them, permit them, encourage them, and thank them for providing feedback. So my biggest lesson in life around feedback has been that you have to encourage feedback from others, you have to actively seek it, you have to actively give them permission to provide you critical feedback, and you have to be very appreciative of them for having, because the moment they give you that piece of feedback, you know that, okay, this is a problem. Most of us have lots of blind spots. Nobody will ever tell us that this is happening. And nobody will have, because they don't want to be the person telling you that this is a problem with you. Let's say somebody has bad breath, or nobody tells them that they have bad breath, because, why should I, I'll feel rude in telling somebody that you have bad breath. It's like that. So feedback is something that rarely comes to us. But how do you create an environment around you where you are facilitating good feedback to come through from everyone, from your clients are they're easy to get feedback, but from your workforce, from your investors, from your relationships, from your children, right? So one of the things that my coach, Marshall Goldsmith, he talks about is when his daughter Kelly was 8 years old, he went to her and said, how can I be a better daddy to you, right? Just imagine how many of us in this room have actually asked our children, how can I be a better father or a better mother for you? It's very, very rare. And she gave him some feedback. You thought maybe 8-year-old, what would she know? But she had very specific feedback. You travel too much. When you are at home with me, do not use a smartphone because I feel like you're distracted, whatever, things like that. So he noted all those things down, and he told her, look, I'm going to get better. And then every month he would ask her, am I getting better? Do you think, let's say I was 5 on 10, did I get better? 6 on 10 or 7 on 10? And eventually over time he got better. In fact, so much better that 3 years or 4 years later, he went and asked her again as to, give me some feedback. How can I be a better daddy? She said, can you please dial down the time that you're spending with me? Because you're spending way too much time with me. I thought you were spending too little, but now that she's a teenager, she didn't want that much time from her dad. So, things will change. But getting this feedback from the environment and then absorbing this, not just rejecting it, because the first instinct is to say, this feedback is wrong. This guy doesn't know me. He's seen me only for 2 days. He doesn't understand all my background. This is ridiculous. So first instinct is to reject the feedback. Every single time I've got critical feedback, I have rejected it. I'm promising you, knowing all of this, I still reject feedback in the very first pass. And only after then living with it, processing it, and that I come to this realization that maybe there's some truth to this. And once I recognize it and work on it, then I get better. So I'll give you one example of a coach called Srikanth Gupte. He came to our office a few years back as a coach, and he spent some time with me. Went back, and then he said, look, I want to spend time in your office and work with a bunch of people. He spent 2-3 days in our office. Then a week later, when I met him, he said, Srikanth, you're the most customer unfriendly business I've ever met. I said, are you crazy? This is wrong. No way. We do so much good work for clients. We can't be customer unfriendly. We are very friendly. We are very client centric. Look at these walls there. Client value creation is a value that we have written up there. We do great work for clients. We are client friendly. He said, no. I have run, he used to run Marico in India. So he said, I've run Marico, I know what is customer centricity, what is consumer centricity. You guys are not customer centric. You never talk about your customers. Whenever you talk about your customers, you think of them in a very critical way. So I said, okay, this is good. And I went and absorbed it, reflected on it for a few days. And then I brought my executive team together and told them, this is what I got as a feedback. They also rejected it outright. But I had by then processed it. So I said, look, these are the examples. I think there's a point there. There is something to say for this. And I may be the biggest culprit. I'm probably the first one to be not customer unfriendly because I always think that clients are wrong, etc. And then we changed. Once we accepted it, we changed. So absorb the feedback, reflect on it, and then make the change, because that is the biggest source of learning. We are not yet done being perfect. Right? We are good in what we do, but we can always get better. So having this confidence that, look, I'm good, I'm worthy, but I can also get better, and I can, by receiving feedback and acting on it. I think that's the biggest lesson that we can take away from our session today.
Thank you. I think the time is up now. So I will just summarize by saying thank you, Srikanth, for sharing your views on it.
Thank you, Harish.
I just would give one liner that it's very clear that growth mindset is nothing but a self-belief. A self-belief where you feel that any uncertainty, any challenge, any obstacle that comes on your way, or when a failure comes on your way, you will have the confidence, you will build your own abilities to overcome those and be successful. Thank you all for listening to us.
If we have one more minute, I would, if I know the NASSCOM story is also a story of growth mindset. If you could share that in a couple of minutes, with your permission.
Sure.
No, Srikanth, I will need half an hour. but anyway, I'll just talk quickly, I'll talk about it. Srikanth, NASSCOM is very lucky to have 10 Srikanths with each of his own growth mindset. And what did they deliver? Dr. Sumantra Ghosal used to say that 1,000 years of downward spiral of India was arrested by the IT industry, and NASSCOM was the sutradhar making it happen. So what do we mean by here, let's say, in the growth mindset? If you go back 35 years, India was a snake charmer's country as a brand. If you want to eat fruits, your parents will say, let's go to Kashmir to eat the fruits. You buy a scooter, and let's say you're in a college, you buy a scooter. It will be delivered by the time you're married and you have 2 children. From there, it has emerged as a global tech powerhouse today. How did it happen? And I would fundamentally, in my book also I've written, one of the major pillars is the growth mindset. And there are multiple dimensions to it. I'll just talk about one simple dimension, that when we started, we didn't even have $1 billion vision. We were at $50 million. The total outsourcing pie was $300 billion. There were hundreds of regulations sort of blocking our growth, but we are at 50 million. So we had that if we can figure out a way to solve this, we can overcome. So we came up with a vision of $1 billion. At that time, Mr. Vittal, who was the DOE secretary, he said, young man, do you know how many zeros are in a billion? So we started from there. So when we reached billion, we aimed for $50 billion by 2008. Now, when we did the $50 billion projection, we also projected all the other sub-segments of the ecosystem. For example, we projected how many airports needs to be expanded in terms of capacity if we do 50 billion. How many residences would be required in which cities? How many cars would be required and whatnot, which helped the entire, and of course the educational institutes in terms of what kind of skills would be required. NASSCOM literally wrote the IT policies of 20 states. But it all came out of that growth mindset from $50 billion to $150 billion. Today we are at $250 billion, looking at $350 billion. So that's just the numbers way. But then there are very interesting stories about same mindset, not numbers driven, but policies driven, thought driven, which hopefully I'll cover maybe later in the afternoon. Thanks.
Thank you, sirs. Just to remind you all, Mr. Srikanth Velamkanni will be available at Sapphire Banquet on the first floor for the unconference, and Mr. Harish Mehta will be available at boardroom, first floor for unconference. Ladies and gentlemen, to honor the wisdom shared by Mr. Srikanth Velamkanni and the guiding hand of Mr. Harish Mehta in our first session of the day, I request Mr. Bimal Patwari, the respected president of TiE Kolkata, along with Mr. Pulak Chamaria, director, Infinity Group, to join us on stage to present a token of the gratitude. Thank you. So Mr. Srikanth will be available at Sapphire and Mr. Harish Mehta will be available at Boardroom, first floor.